Today's guest on Comfort Kills is a 26-year Army veteran who spent 30 months in combat zones. Colonel Mondragon, or Skip, became a casualty of depression. As he recovered, he was called to advocate for men struggling with this dark disease by speaking and writing. As a national veterans wrestling champion, Skip combined his passion for wrestling with the advocacy for depression and published his book, Wrestling Depression is Not for Wimps. He is here to say even tough guys get depressed, and you do not need to suffer alone in silence one more day. Dr. Skip, welcome to Comfort Kills.
Well, thank you, Jasmine. I'm delighted to be here. Dr. Jazz, yes.
I'm so excited to have you here today. So when you originally reached out or with your story, and I heard that you were a 26-year veteran, I was just like, yes, I need to get him on my show. And then here we are. So lots of things, touchy subject, hits very close to home for me. And as you know, I've had my husband on the Veteran Special for 2020. And, lots of things that I would love to hear more about from your perspective, and just listen to another veteran speak to just some of the things that you went through with your years of service and the things that you saw and did as well. So we'll just go ahead and jump right on in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your career looks like and the wartime that you served as well?
Very good. Well, I came on active duty in 1989,
Okay.
jumped into the fray at Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Ah,
Arrived there with my family. Dreary day, January 3rd, 1989. It was cold, it was bleak, it was gray. We
mhm.
had 3 young children in tow. My
Oh,
son
wow.
Adam was 6, Christopher was 4. No, rather, Adam was 4, Christopher was 2, and
Mhm.
Angeli was 4 months old.
Okay. Oh.
We knew 2 people.
Uh-huh.
I knew my sponsor and his wife. Both were doctors, both were Army
Mhm.
doctors. And there we were. I had rented a house ahead of time,
Uh-huh.
and we were moving in.
Yeah, yeah.
My boss, the chief of the Department of Medicine,
Mhm.
he preempted my leave. He said, "Skip, we really need you to come to work," because I was supposed to have some extra leave to get my
Mhm.
family
Yeah,
settled.
yeah.
Little did I know, you don't know what you don't know, is I had the opportunity to say, "No, sir, I'm not going to come in," and go to his superior.
Ah,
However, I took it as a command. Okay, I got to go to work,
yeah, yep.
and went to work rather than getting my family settled.
Mhm.
So that was my introduction to the United States Army. And within 6 months, I had 2 colleagues in my service in the internal medicine service.
Okay.
Lee Southmaid, who was the chief of the department, another doctor.
Yeah.
The other doctor was going on to an infectious disease fellowship,
Mm.
and Lee decided to get out of the Army. Unexpectedly, he decided to do a civilian fellowship in nephrology.
Okay.
So within 6 months, well, less than 6 months, they turned to me and said, "Skip, you are now chief of the internal medicine clinic. You are medical director for the ICU, and you will be the only internal medicine physician for Fort Sill this summer.
That's so
Welcome to the Army." Now,
that's
it
so
was the
Army.
most miserable, I mean, the most
Mhm.
miserable summer we spent in the Army.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
horrible. It was
Oh.
absolutely horrible. I was so sleep
Wow.
deprived. And we didn't think it could get worse after residency. And I spent days where I was at the hospital during resident, 40, 44 hours,
Uh-huh.
48 hours at a time at the
Yeah.
hospital,
Mhm.
but almost no sleep. But
Mm.
that
Mhm.
summer, oh, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
horrible. So that was our
wow.
introduction to the Army.
Mm.
In 1990,
Yeah.
August 1990,
Okay. A year later, a
you
year and a
know
half.
that Saddam was rattling his saber and had
Mm.
invaded Kuwait.
Mhm.
And when George W. Bush,
Mhm.
or George H. Bush,
Uh-huh.
declared war,
Yep.
I was assigned to the 47th Field Hospital.
Okay.
as were most of the other professional staff of the hospital, Reynolds Army Community Hospital there.
Mm,
So within a matter of days, they took most of the hospital staff and assigned us to the 47 Field Hospital.
mhm.
And we started training to deploy. In fact, we
Okay.
were the first major medical unit in
Yeah.
theater.
Okay.
And during the early days, with the expectation of a large ground attack, we were
Mhm.
expecting tens and tens of thousands of
Mhm.
casualties had that taken place.
Mhm.
Thankfully, it did not. In fact, there were estimates up to 100,000 or more
Mhm. Mhm.
if we had done a ground attack.
Right.
And of course, that never materialized because of
Okay.
the bombing attacks and the air attacks that took
Mhm.
place that decimated Saddam's army.
Mm.
And during that time, it was very uncertain. You say goodbye. And of course, you know what it's like for deployments. Hurry up
Right.
and wait. Hurry
And
up
wait.
and wait.
Yes.
Oh, we're going. Get ready.
Yep.
Report to
Now
the air. Report.
mhm.
When you report,
Now wait.
it's never at a convenient time. Oh,
No.
200. Oh, 300. Be
Mhm.
there at 0430. So
Yep.
you're saying goodbye to your family. You're all ready. And you get there. Oh, we couldn't get on the plane.
Yep.
So you go home. And
Mhm.
this happened about 3 times. And we were just so utterly exhausted physically
Yeah. Yeah.
and emotionally. It's finally
Right.
to the point, oh, please, please just put us on that plane.
Right. At this point, you're begging. Let me just go already. Yeah. Ugh.
We get in theater. And of course, we knew Saddam had chemical weapons
Mm. Mhm.
because he had used them on his own people. And he had missiles, Scuds that could reach where we were at. So we lived with our mop suits, our
Mhm.
chemical gear. You always carried your mask,
Mhm.
and those alarms
That
would
big
go
bulky
off,
thing
and
right there. Yep.
you're putting things on, and you're putting those
Yeah.
on, and 120-degree heat, and
Oh.
just in moments you're
Mhm.
just can't see,
Mhm.
especially if you had the glass
Yeah.
glass insert. You just like
Yeah. You're
I
fogged up
can't,
inside. You can't breathe. You can't see. It's just
you
miserable.
can't hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you wait for the alarms to go off, and then you're practicing. You're doing your drill, saying, "Okay, if we do this, this is how we're going to have to decontaminate patients. This is how we're going to have to triage patients. This is how we're going to have to treat patients."
Uh-huh.
Uh, so we lived with that uncertainty for a matter of months before things, settled down.
Uh-huh.
But it was some
Yeah.
harrowing months in there
Mm.
early on in that conflict.
Wow.
Thankfully, we came through and did
Mhm.
well and went home within 7 months. I
Mhm.
was worried that my daughter wasn't going to recognize me because
Mm.
she was so young when I left.
Yeah.
She was barely
Yeah.
2 when I left, but
Yeah.
she remembered daddy.
That's good.
And
Oh.
then my wife was pregnant with our fourth child when I left, and
Okay.
we were worried that I wasn't going to get home for the birth, but I got
Mm.
home 11 days before our son
Wow.
Jonathan was born.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was the early years,
Yeah.
uh, Fort Sill, then went on to fellowship there at Walter
Mhm.
Reed for 2 years, which was a
Yeah.
nice break other than living in Washington, D.C. with
Hey now,
four
I'm from
children
there.
and then five children. You're an anomaly.
Mhm.
You're an anomaly because
Yep.
you see a lot of, dinks, double income, no kids. You see
Uh-huh.
working
Oh.
families, and here we are walking around with four young children, and uh, there at the end of our time there, five young children. So everybody's just looking, five kids. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh!
That's a lot.
And Sherry's at home. She's homeschooling the kids. So
Oh.
we were very much an anomaly, and it
Mhm.
was a lonely time for my wife.
Yeah.
I was busy with my fellowship and enjoying
Okay.
myself,
Yeah.
but it was an interesting time
Okay.
there. And then we were
It
assigned to Brooke Army Medical Center, which was
okay.
a great time. That was our
Texas, yeah.
favorite duty station there in San Antonio. And of
Yeah.
course, you've been in San Antonio. You know what
Yes.
I'm talking about. What an
I do.
amazing city. What a fun city.
Beautiful. Yes.
There, it was an ideal time for our kids
Mhm.
too. The post wasn't closed then. It wasn't post 9/11. It was
Mhm.
open. You could come and go through
Yes.
various gates.
Yeah.
Within 10, best 15 minutes, you could be downtown San Antonio. You could go down to the
Mhm.
river walk, go to events,
Yeah.
do things, go up to restaurants. We had memberships for the children's museums that we would take the kids to, the Whittier Children's Museum. We
Okay.
would had season passes to Six Flags over Texas and to
Mm.
SeaWorld. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
Yeah.
So we could go take the kids for half a day
Yeah.
and do things and then come home. And we could do these things. And it was an
Mhm.
ideal time during the
Yeah.
years that our kids were there.
Okay.
And when
That's
we
neat.
left there, we went to Fort Hood.
Okay.
And that's where we spent several years at Hood. And I was deployed again towards the end of our, well, I was actually deployed twice during our time at Hood.
Mhm.
First to OIF-1 during 2002, 2000, well, 2003, 2004.
Mhm.
Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's yeah, sounds about
30304. And I was up in Mosul with the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault
right.
and had the privilege of being able to work at, towards the end there, actually alongside and interact with General Petraeus and
Okay.
his amazing staff.
Yeah.
What an incredible staff! And I was there with the 40 or with the 21st Combat Support Hospital.
Okay. All right.
So time there, went
Yeah.
home, and actually that was the crowning point. I don't know if I want to say that,
Yeah.
but that was
That was it.
the most memorable,
Yeah.
if you will, time I spent in the Army in this regard.
Gotcha.
We were there in split ops, the 21st, we call it the 21st Cache North up in Mosul.
Mhm.
Most of the larger portion of the 21st Cache was in Balad,
Okay.
where the commander was, and then we had the DCCS, Deputy Commander of Clinical Services, and others of us up in Mosul,
Mhm.
and he was
Mhm.
the OIC. Well,
Mhm.
he and our chief medical officer, who was assigned there, they were leaving theater early,
Yeah.
a matter of months early. So they turn around to me and they say, Skip, we want you to be the OIC. And they said, you're going to be the most senior medical officer here, and you we think you need to do this job. You would be the best one for it. And I'm thinking,
Okay.
me? What?
Yeah.
Huh? I know what it requires to provide
Mhm.
great medical care, how a medical team works, how to coordinate
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about force protection. I don't know anything
Right.
about logistics. I don't,
Yeah. Oh my
I don't know
goodness.
about this admin stuff. What are you
Right.
just like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm thinking to myself,
Uh-huh.
hell and hell no. I didn't say it, but that's what I
Right.
was thinking. And I talked with my wife. I talked with a friend of mine who had commanded at various posts, Dave Gifford.
Mhm.
And Dave actually had been on my staff. He was retired and had been on my staff as a rheumatologist back at Hood. And we were talking back and forth in email. And he said, well, Skip, you need to rethink that
Mhm.
because you're going to be pinning on '06 soon.
Mhm.
And when decisions are made, there needs to be a colonel sitting at the table for the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah.
So I began to pray about it. And within a matter of days, from hell no to,
Yeah.
I think that's what I want. And the scripture that kept coming to me was from the book of Esther.
Mhm.
For such a time as this, for such a time as this. And I thought,
Yeah.
well, Lord, I think you're saying something to me.
Yeah.
So I went back and I said, yes, I'd like this job. And it turned out to be the most amazing experience of my
Good. Good.
time in the
Good.
Army because I was responsible. I was the OIC, the officer in charge of the
Uh-huh.
21st Combat Support Hospital North.
Yeah. Yeah.
220 personnel,
Uh-huh.
uh, medical care, logistics,
Mhm.
force protection, air
Wow.
evacuation. Plus, I
Yeah.
got to interact with General Petraeus and his
Mhm.
amazing staff.
That's pretty cool.
That all of this, but what you find out in that, you don't have to know everything. You aren't expected to know everything. You
Uh-huh.
surround yourself with great people. And I had great
Exactly.
people
Mhm.
that knew all those things that I could get advice from. Sure, I had to make the final decisions.
Right.
They would make the recommendations.
Yep.
But when you have all those great people working for
Exactly.
you and
Yep.
with you,
Uh-huh.
you can do great things.
Yep.
And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I took away from that. And
Mm.
had I said no, I
Mhm.
would have missed that. would have missed that.
Mhm.
And I set out with some major goals when I took that job. One,
Mhm.
that we would bring back everybody safe and sound,
Yeah.
all 220 of our personnel. We did
Uh-huh.
so.
Oh,
That
nice.
we
Very
would
good.
provide excellent medical care. We did so. In fact,
Mhm.
I'll come back to that because we had some incredible things that we did.
Okay.
3, that we would have a seamless transfer to the 67th Combat Support Hospital was coming in
Uh-huh.
to replace us.
Right.
And 4, that God would be glorified. And I felt that
Mm.
succeeded at every one of those.
That's
And some of the
great.
medical things that we did was we at one point had a soldier that came in and
Uh-huh.
he was hemorrhaging horrendously
Uh-huh.
and we were having trouble
Right.
supplying him with blood. We ran out of blood
Mhm.
products and we couldn't
Yeah.
get more in.
Oh,
Just a
wow.
few weeks before, my buddy Dave Ridstead, who went on to actually command the 21st uh, Combat Support Hospital a matter of years later,
Okay.
he had joined us in theater, and I made him the chief or the
Mhm.
medical officer working with the or the lab officer.
Mm.
They worked hand in hand, and they put together
Mhm.
an SOP, a standing operating procedure
Yeah.
for a blood bank, a walking blood bank. If that
Okay.
ever came to that, what would we do to
Right.
provide blood?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they had put that together just a couple weeks before. So when
Mhm.
they were hemorrhaged, this guy, we
Mm.
couldn't keep up with blood. He went into the chow hall and he began to ask, "Who has this type blood?" Soldiers start, "I do, I do." And he said, "All right, come on. We have a soldier that is
Wow.
going to die if we don't give him blood."
Oh my
So they
goodness.
took him into the lab and they were
Uh-huh.
transfusing blood, and then we were giving it to in our hospital,
Wow.
and we saved that soldier's life.
Oh my gosh, I have chills. Wow.
I had forgotten about this story un un until Dave retired
Mhm.
year before last,
Mhm.
and he at his retirement, we were talking, and he said, "Do you remember Skip?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes,
Yeah.
we did do
Wow.
that."
Amazing
I
work.
was like, the only thing I regret is we didn't write that up for a
Oh,
medical journal. That would have
yeah.
been an amazing thing for one of our military,
Yeah.
medical journals to
Is it
say,
too late?
We put this they
Yeah.
put this SOP together, and
Yeah.
we saved this
Yeah.
soldier's life."
Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. I hope he hears this. I hope he hears this. The
And
soldier
then
that
there
you
were
saved.
other stories I could tell, but
Yeah.
time doesn't permit. But I use that to illustrate some of the great care
Right.
that we gave
Yeah.
and the amazing things. Well, let me share one other story.
Yeah, sure, of course.
One other amazing story that happened, and it
Mhm.
started off on a beautiful September day.
Yeah.
That finally the temperatures had broken. They were down below triple digits,
Okay.
and it felt comfortable. Oh my gosh, we're not in the hundreds. We're only
Yes.
in the
Uh,
90s. It felt like heaven.
it sounds like coming out of my husband's mouth. I've heard that so many times.
And it was a quiet day.
Yeah.
And then we get the call.
Mhm.
There's been a there's been a shooting,
Mm.
and we got incoming. We have
Mhm.
some critical, some walking wounded.
Mhm.
Come to the EMT tent.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
all come. Our commander briefs us very quickly. We have our assigned teams, so we gather with our teams. He gives us a layout, said, go get your tables ready. You each had there. I was the doctor in charge of one.
Mhm.
So I briefed the assignments, what everyone is going to do initially on our assessment of the patient.
Yeah.
And then we step back outside waiting for the ambulances and the vehicles
Uh-huh.
to roll up. Well, they roll up, and I'm standing there, and they take off this big, strapping infantryman with the
Mm.
101st Division.
Mhm.
And he's fighting, and his legs, which are hanging by shreds of tissue, and
Mm.
there are two large straps, the packing straps, or I'm trying to think what they're called, but thick straps that they use to hold things down
Yeah.
from his Humvee.
Uh-huh.
Those are makeshift
The ratchet
tourniquets on
straps.
his thighs. Sorry?
Ah. Ratchet straps?
Yes.
Yeah.
and they are
Okay.
wrapped around his thighs as makeshift
Mm.
tourniquets.
Yeah.
They had large bore IVs in each arm
Uh-huh.
there that they had put in the field. They applied those
Right.
makeshift tourniquets, and
Yeah.
he is just thrashing, trying to get up in these legs. What's left of them are just flopping and flipping all over. And as soon as he comes off, our our OICE looks at me and says, "Skip, he's yours."
Mm.
So get him
Yeah.
on the litter. We're trying to hold him down while others are carrying him in. We get him on the exam table. We're trying to examine him, and I look
Uh-huh.
at our nurse anesthetist, and I say, "Kate, what can you do for me?" Because
Yeah.
he's just fighting us. We can't
Uh-huh.
examine him. We can't
Sedate him quick.
test him. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So she does quick uh, sedation on him,
Yeah.
gets him intubated.
Uh-huh.
So gets the tube down his throat. We got control of his airway. Now we can examine him. I go to quickly
Mm.
examine him. I'm examining. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
no
Mhm.
pulse.
Mm.
Can't feel pulse. Can't register a blood pressure.
Oh.
I can't register a pulse oximeter, an
Yeah.
oxygen level.
Uh-huh.
This guy's in hemorrhagic shock. Keep those fluids wide
Yeah.
open. Call for
Yeah.
the blood. This, you look on his
Right.
dog tags, but,
Yeah.
we initially got his name. So I'm talking to this guy, and his name happened to be
Mhm.
S-
Yeah.
Sergeant Heath Calhoun. Sergeant, Sergeant
Mm.
Calhoun, I'm Dr. Mondragon. I'm here with you, as is my team. We're going to take good care of you. I'm going to take good
Mhm.
care of you, soldier.
Yeah.
And we went to work on him. We assessed him very quickly there. You're looking for any chest wounds, abdomen wounds, other wounds. Thankfully, there were none. You're calling your surgeons and saying
Right.
he needs to go to the OR ASAP.
Yeah.
You're pouring fluids into him
Uh-huh.
and getting that blood as fast as you can to start the
Yeah.
transfusions.
Mhm.
So he goes to the operating room and they do the amputations of his
Mhm.
legs. As I said, thankfully, there were no other wounds.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Several hours later, he's waking up in the ICU.
Mm.
So I go in and I'm chatting with him.
Mhm.
Introduce myself,
Right.
and we're chatting. And we're talking back and forth. And I ask him about his family. He's married, has a young daughter at home. He's expecting a second child.
Mm.
And then he looks at me and goes, Doc, what about my legs?
Mm.
And I said, Sergeant, I'm sorry to tell you,
Mhm.
but they had to amputate one above the knee and one below the knee.
Mhm.
And then he just looks at me and he goes, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Mm. He hasn't seen them yet.
We continued to talk a little bit more. And then I asked him, well, what are you going to tell your wife?
Mhm.
When I talk to her, I'm going to say, honey, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good
Mhm.
news is I'm coming home.
Mhm.
The bad news is they blew off my legs because what
Mm.
happened is with an RPG, rocket
Mhm.
propelled grenade, that shot that, it went
Yeah.
through their Humvee and
Mhm.
it shattered his legs.
Yeah.
And had it not been for the quick actions of his team
Mhm.
there in the field with those makeshift tourniquets
Yeah.
and getting those IV fluids going,
Mm.
he would have died long before
Mhm.
he ever reached us.
Wow. Yeah.
We Now, a few hours later, I think it was his brigade commander that came in to check on him. And he
Mhm.
had one of the special phones that was secure that they could talk back home.
Yeah.
So he gave it to Sergeant Calhoun. And I can use his name because his story's been told throughout the web. And he tells his story. And
Okay.
there's more to this story that I'll tell a little bit
All
here
right.
before we move on.
Yeah.
So he calls his wife.
Mhm.
Wife's standing probably 10, maybe 12 feet away in the ICU. He calls his wife
Mhm.
and they're chatting. He goes, honey, I got good news and I got bad news.
Yeah.
The good news is I'm coming home.
Yeah.
The bad news is they blew off my legs. And she's going, what? What?
Right.
Oh my gosh. She's
Yeah.
just
Of course.
screeching on the other end. And here, this man that was on the brink of death hours before is now here comforting his wife. Honey, it's going to be okay. Honey, we're going to be okay. It's going
Oh,
to be okay, honey.
yeah.
The next day, we're loading him up on a ambulance, and then with another soldier of his who had lost in the same attack, lost his dominant hand
Mm.
right at the wrist, and
Mhm.
knew that these soldiers' lives are never going to be the same
Right.
because and
Yeah.
they're thanking us profusely. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for all you've done. And we're thinking,
Yeah.
oh, gee, thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are out there risking your lives.
Mhm.
They go on to launch stool, and we lose track of Sergeant Calhoun.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, that was September. Now, in February, mid-February, we're returning to CONUS, so returning
Mhm.
to
Back to the
continental
U.S.
U.S.
Mhm.
We had to stop there at Fort Campbell.
Okay.
And of course, what time is it? The middle of the night.
Mhm.
Of course, because we are on our way back to Fort Hood,
Uh-huh.
but there were soldiers with the 101st that
Yeah.
were on that plane, so we made a stop there.
Yeah.
Mrs. Petraeus
Okay.
comes out to greet us with some other ladies and other individuals. They're
Uh-huh.
serving us snacks and food. Being the
Mhm.
OIC, she takes me aside and we're chatting.
Mhm.
And she asked me, do you remember Sergeant Calhoun? Oh,
Uh-huh.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I want to tell you, last week he was out here on the tarmac in his prostheses,
Uh-huh.
welcoming his buddies
Wow.
home.
That fast.
And when she said that,
Uh-huh.
my heart sang
Oh.
because I knew that this man was going to be fine.
Mhm.
And later, come to find out, he's a Paralympian,
Mm.
and he went on to participate with the U.S. Paralympics,
Yep.
and he was an eventual silver medalist for the
Very
U.S. Olympic
nice.
team.
Ah,
And
yes.
he's become an advocate, a
Mhm.
speaker, and talking out to veterans and others
Right.
that have been injured.
Yeah.
So he's gone on to do great things. And so it speaks to the courage. It speaks to the
Mhm.
wonderful power of grit and
Yes.
determination of
Yes.
individuals like Sergeant Calhoun. But it
Mhm.
also speaks to the cutting edge of medicine that
Mhm.
Army medicine provides.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
I don't know if people realize the world class medicine
Mhm.
that goes on
Mhm.
out in the field,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
kind of care we provide
Yeah.
under the conditions that we provide it in,
Exactly. Yeah.
and then the cutting edge that's provided in our hardened facilities here in the
Mhm.
US and other around the world, and the kind of research that goes on with this,
Mhm.
major advances in surgery, in blood banking, in
Yeah.
virology,
Yep.
in vaccinology, and all the kind of
Mhm.
research and advances that take
Yes.
place through Army medicine
Yes.
that people don't understand that we
Absolutely. Yeah.
are on the cutting edge of medicine and the
Right.
care that we provide because years ago somebody with those kind of injuries or many of the injuries that our soldiers now have,
Mhm.
they would not have survived in the battlefield.
Right.
They
Yeah.
would not survive
Yeah.
because of the advances,
Uh-huh.
these soldiers now survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was one of the most memorable patients
Mhm.
I took care of, one of the most courageous. So moving on,
Yeah.
finishing out time at Hood. At the time I'm leaving there, uh, well, actually, there was a time before I left Fort Sam that I went to
Uh-huh.
Haiti for 7 months or so,
Gotcha. Yeah.
97, 98.
Uh-huh.
This was uh, 03, 04, and
Mhm.
then went back to Hood, and then back to Fort Sill. Now, the
Uh-huh.
interesting thing, going back to Fort Sill, then I'm an 06, so I'm a
Uh-huh.
colonel.
Yeah.
And one little anecdote about that. They're giving me a tour the first few days that I'm there because now I'm the deputy commander for clinical service, chief medical officer of the hospital. I'm in the command
Mhm.
suite,
Mhm.
and they're giving me a tour, and we're down in the records room. And as they're talking to me, there's a lady that's going, you remind me of Dr. Mondragon. Dr. Mondragon! Well, she had
Yeah.
been there when I had first been there. Now, first time I'd been
She's
there,
still there.
I was a captain. I was an
Mhm.
03. Before I left, I had pinned on major.
Mhm.
Now I come back and I'm a full bird colonel.
Yeah.
So when you're a captain, they don't expect you to really know anything when you're a medical officer, but
Yeah.
you come back and you're a colonel.
Yeah.
Now they expect you to know everything.
Yes.
Of course, you don't know everything, but it's that difference. And then when you're in the command suite, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Mhm.
And then from there, we went on to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and that's where I finished out our career.
Okay.
And I got deployed one more time
Yeah.
after I'd been there at Fort Gordon for a year, and I spent
Mhm.
that year in Baghdad,
Okay.
and thankfully came back home safe and sound. And then in 2014,
Mhm.
at the end of the year, we retired. However, in 2014, I came into my office on April 17th,
Mhm.
turned off the lights, locked the door,
Mhm.
closed the blinds, turned
Mhm.
off my phones. I crawled under the desk in my office
Mhm.
and I lay there on this musty carpet in the dark.
Mhm.
And for 4 hours, I wrestled with these questions. Skip, what are you doing?
Mhm.
Skip, how did you get here? What happened?
Yeah.
And I'm going through this in my mind
Right.
because I'm thinking, how could this be? I've been in the Army 25 years at that point,
Mhm.
25 plus years. I'm a tough guy. I'm a colonel. I'm a soldier. I
Yeah.
spent 30 months in combat zones.
Mhm.
I'm a national wrestling champion.
Yeah. I love it.
Get the plaque here correct
Yes.
there. Yeah, this
Very proud.
camera. Yeah,
Congratulations on
I'm
that.
I'm a tough guy. How could
Yeah.
this be? And, and I keep asking myself, Skip, what
Mhm.
happened? How could this be? And I
Yeah.
began to slowly put the pieces together.
Mhm.
And finally, I could understand.
Yeah.
And I told myself, Skip, you're depressed. Go get help.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that day, I started on that road to recovery
All
out of
right.
that depression.
Mm. Now, did you always feel like you were it wasn't that moment 25 plus years later. It was a culmination of everything that's occurred in your career, in your life over time. At what point, now looking back retrospectively, did you realize that it was always there, but you just didn't acknowledge it and give it, um, own it, I guess, take ownership for it?
That's an interesting question, Jasmine. I was on a podcast about a year ago,
Mhm.
and the gentleman Al Levin on the depression files asked me,
Yeah.
"Have you have you always been depressed?"
Right.
And I had to ponder that because I'd
Mhm.
never thought about that, never been asked that.
Mhm.
When I was asked that, it made me pause and think, there's always been this low level of melancholy
Mm.
that has
Mhm.
been in my life.
Yeah.
And then when I look in retrospect, now with the vantage point of where I have, I realize
Mhm.
there's been episodes in my life where so I had this very low level.
Mhm.
That's always run
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
But then when I look, there have been episodes where I was depressed.
Mhm.
I didn't have the insight, and I don't think others did.
Mhm.
to know that I was depressed.
Right.
I just knew that I really struggled, and those were very difficult times for me. But now when I look back, I say, oh, no wonder that was so hard. I
Right.
was depressed.
Yeah, yeah.
I was there. So there's been this very low level, and then times when it's gotten worse, and
Mhm.
over a period of matter of months, you rebound and come out of that.
Right. Yeah.
But this one was so severe that I wasn't coming out of this without help. That
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
it took me down. I would have told you it was accumulation of the 10 plus months before that, the progressive insomnia, the
Mhm.
issues related going on with my department, the Department of Medicine at the hospital,
Mm.
the issues related to the uncertainties of preparing to transition out of the Army,
Yeah.
and then having 3 surgeries within 7 months,
Mm.
and with all fraught with complications. Why did I have to have 3 surgeries? Because I
Yeah.
was taking care of everybody else
Mhm.
and
No,
not
not
taking
yourself.
care of
Yep.
myself. And now it's
Mhm.
like, okay, I got to get this done because I'm going to be out of the Army soon.
Take advantage. Yeah.
And I would have said, well, it's all those things.
Mhm.
The farther you get away from that, you realize, no, it's
Mm.
all the baggage you bring from your childhood, your teenagers, your young adulthood,
Mm.
and then those issues of your career with the Army, the things you
Mhm.
faced, the
Yeah.
the the deaths you deal with, the trauma you deal with, the difficulties you deal with. All those
Mhm.
things just stack up.
Yeah. Mhm. All those in little tiny pebbles builds this nice big mound, and then you finally realize it when this mound's like this big now with all those little tiny pebbles added
Yep.
together. Yeah. Yeah. So, what led you then to advocate for men who struggle with depression? I know you created your book. You say tough guys get depressed too.
Right. I was about a month into my recovery, but I
Okay.
was still really struggling.
Mhm.
And for well over 10 months, my prayers had been, Lord, please, please deliver
Mhm.
me from this darkness.
Mhm.
I suffered. In fact, if you'll allow me, let
Of
me
course.
just read just a
Oh
little bit
yes,
here what
please.
that suffering was like. I had been battered by suffering for 10 months before I admitted I was depressed and formally diagnosed.
Mhm.
I tried to minimize my suffering, ignore it,
Mhm.
deny it,
Mhm.
scream it away, pray it away.
Mhm.
Yet it became my constant, unwanted companion. Even in the best of moments, it resolutely stood next to me. I could not free myself from its powerful grasp.
Mhm.
I was no match for this overpowering foe.
Yeah.
Suffering, suffering,
Mhm.
suffering.
Mhm. And when did you publish this book?
Published it in about just a little, almost a year ago. But
Okay.
going back to why I advocate for men, if I may,
Mhm. Of course, yes.
it's what my prayers, Lord, please, please deliver. And I got this call from my youngest brother, Chris,
Mhm.
and he called very excitedly, and he had just gotten out of a Bible study with Franklin Graham, well-known evangelist, son of
Okay.
Billy Graham,
Yeah.
and had spoken to a group of men in Raleigh, North Carolina,
Mhm.
and he spoke about suffering. And the gist of it was that if Christ suffered so horrendously and brutally on our behalfs, why should we think we should be exempt from suffering?
Mm. Mhm.
And after Chris shared this with me, I began to ponder that, and it brought back to memory, pardon me, a verse, Philippians 2:10.
Mhm.
Oh, that I might know it, and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings.
Mm.
I knew that verse. I
Yeah.
had prayed that verse thousands of times over the
Mhm.
years of my walk with Christ. But yet, when I was suffering, I wanted deliverance.
Mhm.
Within a couple days, my prayers shifted from, Lord, please, please, please deliver me,
Mhm.
to, Lord, what would you have me learn?
Mm.
And how might I use this to help others?
Mhm. Wow.
And what I then began to understand was I needed to share my story.
Yeah.
Now, so I began to jot down notes of what I
Mhm.
had learned and what I
Mhm.
was learning, knowing I'm going to tell my story. I was thinking, well, I'm just going to share my story.
Mhm.
And I had that opportunity before I left Eisenhower Army Medical Center. I spoke. I had asked the commander if I could speak to the staff
Mhm.
about my story and the lessons I learned. So they gave me 2 times that I got to speak to the staff at large, morning and evening in the
Mhm.
hospital auditorium.
Mhm. Okay.
So I had that stage. Here I am, a physician, colonel,
Yeah.
chief of my department,
Mhm.
national wrestling champion,
Mhm.
had those deployments, had all those ribbons and
All those
all that
accolades.
on
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
chest, if you will,
Mhm.
well known throughout the hospital.
Mhm.
People knew who I was.
Yeah.
And I'm standing up on that stage and telling them my story, not holding back,
Mhm.
talking about being curled up under that desk and what led to that.
Mhm.
Why? To encourage others that were struggling. Don't suffer in silence one more day. You're not weak
Right.
and you're not a wimp
Right.
if
Yeah.
you're struggling,
Mhm.
but to go get help. It's not going to
Mhm.
hurt your career.
Exactly.
People are there to help you. And then I made 3 public service announcements with the Department of the Army. Because
Okay.
initially I'd asked the commander, well, can I do some things, some spots for our closed circuit TV to share
Mhm.
that will play
Mhm.
in the hospital? He goes, I think we can do something bigger than that, Skip. Let's
Mm.
have our public affairs office contact the Department of the Army Public Affairs. Let's see if we can do something. And within a
Mm.
couple of weeks, I've got
Mhm.
these cameras and so forth coming into my office, and we're
Yeah.
filming these public service announcements
Uh-huh.
for DA from the Department of the Army
Uh-huh.
about suicide prevention, suicide
Yeah.
awareness, and
Mhm.
telling a little bit of my story to encourage those
Mhm.
who are struggling to go get help.
Yeah.
So that was the start of telling my story. And
Okay.
then I looked for opportunities after I got to the Army. And those were primarily in Toastmasters that I had some opportunities to tell
Mhm.
my story. And that became the genesis for the book.
Yeah.
In 2015,
Mhm.
I happened to win a writing contest.
Okay.
And with that contest came a book deal,
Ah.
a publishing deal.
Yeah.
And that's how my book came about.
Wow. Huh. How funny all those little things just come together for you, and it was just like a domino effect from you just wanting to speak up and advocate and be the voice that says, it's okay for us tough guys to be here, and it's okay for us to seek help. And there's nothing macho about hiding in a dark space and going through this all alone. And I think that's an incredibly important message, and this is something like my husband and I have spoke about. This is something that we see a lot still in our community, our veterans community, and just hearing my husband from time to time saying another friend has taken his own life, and it's hard. It's hard, and
Mm, mm,
it's
mm.
it's it's great that you made it out of that deployment alive and you came home, whether it was completely intact or not, but just being able to still come home to your family, but then having survivor's guilt on top of that,
Oh yeah,
and
you
just,
every deployment, every time, and as a physician, every time you lose a patient, there's a part of
Mhm.
you that I don't know if you want to say dies, but
Mhm.
it, it impacts you
It does. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you you form this bond with your patients. You know what I'm talking about,
Mhm.
Jasmine,
Yes.
that you have this bond with your patients. And then, even if it's under the best of conditions and an expected death and
Mhm.
so forth, but when
Mhm.
they die,
Yeah.
it, it, it hits a chord in you.
Yeah. It does.
And there's a part of you that just grieves.
Mhm.
And it's likewise when you lose soldiers in the field,
Mhm.
that there's something of you that grieves, but you don't have time to grieve.
Right. Yeah.
You may shed tears, or you don't necessarily have time to shed tears. You're comforting those young soldiers that have
Mhm.
never seen a death.
Yep.
And then you're saying,
Yeah.
got to go back to work. We
Yeah.
have these other patients we got to take care of. And these other young soldiers who have never faced death, you're
Mhm.
trying to keep them bolstered up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all the time, you're thinking, boy, you know, you know it's affecting you, but you
Mhm.
can't let it impact your job at
Right.
hand.
Right.
And so that gets compartmentalized,
Mhm.
but it's still there.
Mhm.
It's still there. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of what impacts our fellow vets
Mhm.
is we haven't had time to grieve.
Right.
And there is that survivor's guilt. That why me?
Mhm.
Why did they die? Why didn't I die?
Mhm.
Why was it them? What could I have done? And it's even worse when one of them dies by suicide
Mm.
because
Mhm.
then they feel betrayed. We feel betrayed, or how come I didn't know? Why didn't
Yeah.
I know they were struggling?
Right.
I could have done something.
Yeah.
Or why didn't they tell me they were struggling?
Exactly.
They're my brother or they're my sister.
Mhm.
How aren't we aren't we supposed to have one another's back? Aren't we battle buddies?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
There's this confusion. There's a sense of betrayal. There's a
Yeah.
sense of, well, if it could happen to them,
Mhm.
could it happen to me?
Right.
Could I lose all hope?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And and I think that's some of the things that goes on with our fellow vets.
Mhm.
And part of the reason we're seeing some of the issues that we see.
Yeah. It is. Now, Dr. Skip, with your perspective and having served for so long and going through multiple duties overseas, do you feel like the military has done its absolute best to support our veterans in the mental health area?
Uh, Early on in my career, I don't
Mhm.
think they understood well enough. And I think there was still that macho
Mhm.
culture.
Yeah.
But as the years went on, I began to see that transition
Mm.
and that more openness and talking about it even at the
Mhm.
top levels.
Yeah.
And now, absolutely. Now they've
Good.
pulled out the stops
Yeah.
because they understand that impaired soldiers impairs the army,
Mhm.
impairs their family,
Mhm.
impacts national security. They
Mhm.
understand the implications. So now, definitely, they talk
Mhm.
about it, they encourage it. Unfortunately, I still think at the lowest levels, soldiers still struggle with it.
Mhm.
That stigma.
Yeah. Mm.
Why
Mhm.
be all you can be? We're
Yep.
men. We're
Yep.
tough.
Yep.
And I think
Mhm.
especially in young men and men that are trying to find their way, find their place,
Mhm.
and where do they fall in that social structure, if you will,
Right. Yeah.
and prove themselves to admit I'm hurting,
Mhm.
I'm struggling,
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle this. But I think there's still stigma that
Mhm.
they sense they're going to be looked down upon. They're going to be
Exactly.
seen as
Yeah.
weak. They're going to be
Yeah.
seen as a wimp. They're
Right.
going to be seen as less than.
Mhm.
And for that reason, some, if not many, don't come forward.
Mhm.
Or when they finally do, things are much worse than they would have been if they
Yeah.
sought help sooner.
Exactly.
So, how to break through to them to say no?
Mhm.
Asking for help is not a sign of weakness.
Mhm.
Saying I'm hurting is not a sign of weakness. Now, that's
Exactly.
different than saying, oh, I don't want to do these push ups. Oh,
Uh-huh.
I don't want to go on this run.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to do. No, I'm not
Mhm.
talking about that.
Mhm.
When you sign up to be in the army, you sign up to do some hard things.
Mhm.
Let's face it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you are struggling with the issues of life, that you know
Mhm.
how to appropriately reach out. But part of that too goes to how men are enculturated into our society.
Mhm. Yeah.
Men are not taught to identify their emotions.
Yeah.
I'm lonely.
Mhm.
I'm feeling rejected,
Uh-huh.
or I'm feeling isolated.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
sad.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm feeling something other than anger
Yeah.
or elation or victory,
Uh-huh.
because for a lot of guys, the only acceptable emotions are
Mm.
love,
Mhm.
wow,
Yep. Mhm.
elation, victory,
Mhm.
or anger.
Yeah.
There's not
Mm.
much else that they've learned how to identify,
Mhm.
much less express.
Yeah.
They've never been taught when you're feeling sad, or you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling rejected, or you're feeling disrespected,
Mhm.
or you have some of these feelings. How do you identify?
Mhm.
How do you articulate that?
Right. Yeah.
And the appropriate answer is not to get angry, to lash out, and to hit somebody,
Yeah.
or to say inappropriate things, get yourself in trouble.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's not the way you handle it.
Mm.
So we're enculturated
Yeah.
to act a certain way. Tough, rough, and then you look at the role models. Yeah, they're the rough and tough guy, independent
Mhm.
guy. I can do it all. But
Mhm.
there's two sides that I
Yeah.
think of being a man. There's that strong,
Mhm.
obviously, that strong, decisive side, that's provider, that's protector,
Mm.
that
Mhm.
individual that can look out for the weak and the defenseless,
Mhm.
that individual who takes a stance for what's right and
Yeah.
what's good.
Uh-huh.
But there's that other side that's kind,
Mhm.
that's caring, that's compassionate, that's
Mhm.
tender,
Yeah.
that's gentle, and that knows when it's appropriate to shed a tear, even openly,
Mhm.
and how to teach men that there's those two sides. A- And you don't
Yeah.
have only one side to you. You can't just have the one
Mhm.
or the other and be what a real man.
Yeah.
That the two make us who we are.
Right. They can coexist.
And we need both of those to really be a whole,
Mhm.
true man.
Yeah.
But we need more role models. We need
Yes.
individuals that model this for us, that
Mhm.
show us that, and that are willing to say when they're hurting, I
Mhm.
hurt,
Right.
I'm sad,
Yeah.
I'm lonely.
Yep.
That made me feel disrespected.
Yeah.
That when they can teach others
Mhm.
that by modeling it, and help them in turn to identify that, we
Mhm.
can go a long way.
Mhm.
So many
Yeah.
men cannot do that.
Right. Yeah.
Most most men probably have not had a role model to
Mhm.
show them that.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's phenomenal, Dr. Skip. I think the message that you're sharing right now is so important for our troops to hear, you know, men or women. And I think just it's embedded in us as soldiers, as Marines, as seamen, whatever the case may be. We've all been through this training, this intense training. We've got this career under our belt. We're now a member of the military, and you have this basically like this facade that you have to maintain. And all the things that happen deep down underneath, you know, other people are struggling too. And it's important for us to have more representation of that, more public representation of that, of
Mhm.
people like yourself who are speaking out about this and advocating for us to you know, understand that those two sides can coexist and we can ask for help, and it doesn't make us any weaker any lesser of a human being or a man or a woman to say that. To say those words means you're being brave and you're courageous and you're stepping forth knowing that you've identified an issue within yourself that we can help resolve if you speak up soon enough. And so
Yes. Yes.
that's definitely key.
One of the things I tell people is prevention always trumps rehab.
Mm, hmm.
That if you learn to monitor yourself,
Hmm.
and part of that is self-care.
Right.
Self-care is not selfish,
Hmm.
but to monitor your what I call your energy stores
Hmm.
mentally, physically,
Yeah.
emotionally, spiritually.
Hmm.
And when those begin to ebb, you have to know how to replenish those
Yeah.
because you don't want to become like me, so depleted.
Hmm.
You're
Hmm.
there under a desk in a fetal position
Mm.
because I was beat down, beat up, and broken.
Mhm. Yeah,
I was broken.
yeah.
And you don't want to end up there. So begin to monitor. And early on, if you're struggling,
Mhm,
there's no harm in going to see a, a counselor, go see the chaplain, go
mhm,
see somebody and talk. You go see a doctor for a checkup,
mhm.
a maintenance, a well person
Yeah,
checkup.
yep.
That's recommended. So why not go see a counselor if you begin to
Mhm.
struggle
Yeah,
early on? There's no harm in that.
right. Yeah.
I'm beginning to have a little problems here. I thought I'd make an appointment and talk
Mhm,
and see what we can do and early
mhm,
on address it. Rather
mhm.
wait, not wait until it becomes a crisis or
Yes,
to
yeah.
find those things that you do to care for yourself. Just
Mhm,
simple things, the commonsensical
mhm,
things, maintaining a healthy nutrition, daily exercise, getting
mhm.
out into the sun,
Yeah.
doing some of these things, drinking your water,
Mhm,
making sure you maintain healthy social connections.
mm,
And that's one thing that
mhm.
I think needs to be especially emphasized right now, is
Yes,
because
yes.
people can be isolated. And so,
Mhm,
how do you do that? Now, we all crave touch,
mhm.
we all crave interaction.
Yeah.
And I especially feel for those who live alone and aren't getting any kind of regular physical
Oh my
touch.
goodness, yeah.
I can't imagine.
No.
I live here with my wife. We don't have any children at home, haven't for several years. Thankfully, my what I call my little guy, my youngest grandchild, he comes
Mhm,
over a few days a week, and I see my
mm,
daughter,
mhm,
our middle child out of our five, and my son-in-law on a fairly regular basis, but don't have much interaction other than scattered around the church on Sunday because
mhm.
we're socially distanced, if you will, at church,
Yeah,
but don't go out much otherwise.
right, yeah,
But
yeah.
if you're there, how do you stay connected?
Mhm,
And I think that's important. Pick up that phone, FaceTime,
mhm,
Zoom with somebody,
mhm.
Skype with somebody,
Exactly. Yeah,
talk with somebody, stay
yeah,
in connection with email, but
right.
please
Yeah.
connect. That
Mhm,
human connection is so important. Don't
mhm.
don't disregard that. how important that is to do that for your well-being. And the
Mhm.
other thing is, if you've got time on your hands, look
Yeah.
for some way, how can I serve?
Yeah.
And that might be getting out Meals on Wheels or
Mhm.
reading to kids.
Yeah.
There may be ways to do that online
Right.
and
Yeah.
so forth. Tutoring, again, you can
Mhm.
do that online. There are ways to offer your services. You're saying, I don't know what to do. Well, look for
Mhm.
some creative ways to be engaged, to be of service.
Mhm.
And I think that will enrich your lives and keep you connected
Yeah.
because we all need to have purpose. We all
Yeah.
have to have something that we look forward to getting up to
Yes.
each and every day.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. That's incredibly important. And thank you so much for mentioning that because I think it's especially during these times where, social distancing, not being able to see each other, not being able to touch, not even being able to shake hands with a stranger
Gosh,
has
yes.
been completely just ripped away from us. We can't even express smiles anymore, unless we have perfect crow's feet that will accentuate the smile.
And
It's
I've got a
it's
lot of those, so it comes out
same
with
here, same
mine.
here. Same here. They'll see it, squinty eyes, crow's feet. But it's just it's our new norm, and so finding new ways to adjust to the current situation is very important. So thank you so much for that. So Dr. Skip, sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Was there anything that I haven't discussed or you haven't discussed yet that you would like to share?
I would. I mentioned about when I was underneath that desk and broken and the
Mm,
importance of
mhm,
preventative maintenance, if you will, rather than
mhm.
rehab, waiting to the point
Right.
where you're in a crisis mode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, a couple other things that I would recommend
Mhm.
is enjoy the moment.
Mm.
I think a lot of people are in this. I can't wait till it's over. I can't wait till it's over. I can't wait till we get back to normal. Guess what?
Right.
It
Ain't
ain't
happening.
going back to normal.
Not for a
It's
long
never going to
time.
be the same. Okay,
Yeah.
it's like we were similarly. Things were never the same after 9/11.
Mhm.
Things
Mhm.
will never be the same
Yep.
before the as they were before the pandemic.
Mhm.
We're going to have a new normal, but it will
Mhm.
never be the same. I'm
Yeah.
convinced.
Yeah.
I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
Right. No, I'm there
And if
with
all
you.
you're doing is saying, I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait, you
Uh-huh.
miss what's
Exactly.
going on. You miss the
Yes.
things
Yes.
of today, the things
Yes.
of beauty, the things of wonder, the things of joy,
Mhm.
things you
Mhm.
can be grateful for.
Yep.
I think about it when I get in and can take a shower at any time I want with
Mhm.
hot water if I want.
Yeah.
Because why? You get deployed.
Yeah.
You might not get the hot shower for weeks.
Mhm.
Take our little 2-liter bottle, stick it in the sun,
Uh-huh.
try to get it warmed up during the day, and then you'd go out with your battle buddy away from the rest of camp
Mhm.
there. Punch holes in the bottom of your cap. You'd have your soap
Yeah.
and your towel, and douse yourself and wash
Yeah.
with your 2-liter bottle and dry off, and that was your shower for a period of weeks. So
Yeah.
when you got that first hot shower, it's like, oh, that was like heaven.
Uh-huh.
Or when you could go to a sink and pour potable water.
Uh-huh.
You didn't have to drink that water out of a bottle every
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
or this chlorinated water that you
Uh-huh.
go, oh, God.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Simple things like that. I can go to a
Mhm.
flushing toilet. Thank you.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't have to go on this pit, or I don't have to go to this porta potty. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep. Yep.
Simple pleasures of life, all right? Or
Mhm.
simply enjoying a nice cup of coffee with my sweetheart, knowing that
Mhm.
I'm not thousands of miles away, or getting in bed at night and I snuggle up right next to her, that I'm not
Mhm.
halfway across the world apart
Yeah.
from her.
Yeah.
Things like this, that you can be grateful for that.
Right. Yeah.
Finding the joy in that, that I can look
Yes.
forward to my little guy coming over and, Grandpa, Grandpa, will you play with me, Grandpa? Uh,
Oh.
Whatever that is, or
Uh-huh.
hearing my children's voice when they call me, or
Yeah.
simple things, the things that money cannot buy.
Mhm.
So if all you're doing is looking for, I can't wait,
Mhm.
you miss what's right in front of you.
Yes.
So don't miss what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Take time to be grateful and thankful
Mhm.
and be in awe of it,
Mhm.
relish it.
Mhm.
It's kind of like having a small child and you relish that
Yeah.
moment with that child, knowing that those times are so transient, that those children
Yeah.
grow so quickly.
Uh-huh.
And before you know it, I think I had 5 children swirling my ankles. Then I had older children, and we'd go out and
Mhm.
play in the yard. Then I had teenagers that
Mhm.
didn't want to have much to do with me. And then,
Mhm.
boop,
Yeah.
they were gone.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, wow, that
Mhm.
happened fast. What happened here? Gee,
Yeah.
wow. And I loved being a father,
Uh-huh.
and it was gone.
Yeah. Because life keeps on moving.
Exactly. So
The world.
cherish the moment.
Yeah.
But the other there that I would say is Proverbs 17:20, Proverbs 17:22 says, "A merry heart doeth
Mm.
good like a
Mm.
medicine, but a broken spirit drieth up the bones."
Mm.
And when I was depressed,
Mhm.
I had a broken heart, and I
Yeah.
was dried up,
Mm.
utterly, utterly dried up.
Mhm. Mm.
That verse, I have written that as a prescription for thousands upon thousands of patients over the course of my career.
Mhm.
And I would tell them, this medicine has absolutely no bad side effects.
Mm.
There are no drug to drug interactions, and you cannot overdose on it.
Mm.
So each and every day, laugh and laugh liberally,
Mhm.
because
Yes.
medicine, or rather laughter, is good medicine.
Yes. Perfect. So if I were to give you a billboard, Dr. Skip, is that what it will say, or do you have something even better? Because that was pretty phenomenal.
If you were to give me a billboard,
Yes.
I think I would tell you on that billboard, keep your head up.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. Keep it up. That's it's powerful in the body language itself too, right? Just being able to say, if your head is up, your chin is up, your chest is out, there's some pride still there.
Right. And absolutely. And that's profound because in it has a couple things, and I'll give you an analogy in wrestling.
Mhm.
So in wrestling, or especially trying to teach that to our young wrestlers.
Mhm.
Keep your head up, keep your head up.
Yeah.
Because if your head's down when you're on your feet,
Uh-huh.
you're at at the mercy of your opponent taking you advantage and taking you down to the mat.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then when you're down on the mat, if your opponent's on top of you and your head is down, now you make yourself vulnerable to that opponent turning you over and pinning you.
Mhm.
So you're yelling, keep your head up, keep your head up.
Mhm.
And you mentioned posture. Well, think about it. When
Mhm.
we're feeling guilt,
Mhm.
shame, we're fatigued,
Yeah.
doubt, what happens? Our
Our whole
shoulders
body.
drop,
Mhm.
our chest caves in,
Mhm.
and our head drops.
Mhm.
Now, that when that happens, certain things happen with our physiology. It drops our cortisol, it decreases our creativity,
Mhm.
decreases our strength, our
Mhm.
endurance, and it ups our stress hormones. It ups cortisol and
Mm.
other stress hormones.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when we feel strong,
Yeah.
victorious,
Mhm.
proud,
Mhm.
elated? Our
Yes.
shoulders come back,
Uh-huh.
our chest comes out, our head comes up. Now, the
Uh-huh.
converse is true. Testosterone goes up, cortisol and the other stress hormones go down. It increases
Mhm.
our strength,
Mhm.
it increases our endurance, it increases our cognition, it increases
Mhm.
our concentration and our creativity.
Yeah.
All these things take place by that change in posture.
Mhm.
If we're talking negatively, you are a failure. You always mess up.
Mm.
You're a mess. Why do you do this? You're
Mhm.
never going to get this. That's having the same effect as this.
Mhm.
Instead of, you've succeeded at this before, you're going to
Mhm.
succeed at this again. You know, you did a very kind thing for so and so
Yeah.
yesterday. That was well done. You were very kind to that person.
Mhm.
You did something that was very generous of that. You
Mhm.
were very thoughtful with that.
Right.
If we learn to speak to ourselves more kindly, like we speak
Yes.
to a young child,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than bully ourselves and
Mhm.
be our harshest critics,
Yes. That.
that
Yes.
those kind of things will help us keep our heads up.
Yeah.
And in this time, how much more do people need to hear? Keep your head up.
Up. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for those wise words. And so let's touch on your wrestling a little bit, and then before we stop here. But just I know you're very proud of that. So that, and that also merged into how you created your book and the idea behind it. So let's talk about that. And
Oh,
when
wrestling. Yes, ma'am. Wrestling goes back many years.
yeah.
I'm 65 years old now,
Mm.
and I was introduced into wrestling at the age of 13.
Okay.
Up until that time, I was this shy, awkward kid, typically the smallest kid in my class,
Yeah.
bullied, and I was miserable at any sport. I tell people I even failed tetherball.
Uh,
When we would go out on the playground and teams were chosen,
uh-huh.
I was the last kid chosen. And
Oh.
then the team I was on would go, ah, why does he have to be on our team?
Oh, how mean.
In eighth grade, I discovered wrestling.
Mm.
And it was the first time I ever had this sense, I think I can be good at this.
Mhm.
And after a few practices, I think I can be really good at this.
Mm.
I made the varsity team as an eighth
Nice.
grader, the
Oh,
only eighth
wow.
grader.
Yeah.
Didn't win a match that year. The next
Still
year, I
varsity.
was
Yeah.
actually the best wrestler in the room,
Ah,
but still didn't win a match. Why?
okay.
Because the night before the match, I'd be so worked up, so tense.
Oh.
So
Hmm.
there, I couldn't sleep. I'd
Yeah.
toss and turn all night long. The next
Oh.
day, I'd be so utterly exhausted emotionally and physically, I'd go out on the mat, couldn't perform.
Uh-huh.
I didn't win my first match till the summer after ninth grade.
Okay.
Entered a state tournament, a freestyle wrestling tournament, which was
Mhm.
one of the two Olympic styles.
Mhm.
Won my very first match.
Mm.
Won my second match.
Yeah.
Won my third match.
All right.
Won my fourth match.
Uh-oh.
And now I'm wrestling for the championship.
Nice. Yeah.
I win the championship. My coach asked me afterwards, he goes, do you know who you're wrestling? No.
Mm.
He said, well, that kid won this tournament last year. I made the varsity team as a sophomore. I was three-time starter for the high school team, two-time
Mhm.
district champion, state runner-up. Finished my high school career as an honorable mention All-American. I'd won numerous state freestyle tournaments, placed in 2 national freestyle tournaments as a high schooler. Had
Mhm.
a mediocre at best couple years of college wrestling. But then afterwards, I did some more wrestling and did well. Then later,
Mhm.
at the age of 56, I still have the wrestling bug in me because I helped coach and been around my kids wrestling and others, and my kids would call me affectionately a wrestling groupie. I have all this memorabilia. I got wrestling cards, I got wrestling books, I got posters, I got
Uh-huh.
stuff and
Yeah.
pictures with all these wrestling greats that I've taken. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm that's me. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Now, where is I going? Oh, at age 56,
Mhm.
I pick up a magazine there at the Georgia State Wrestling Tournament for the high school. My
Mhm.
son Joey, our youngest, this was been 2012.
Mhm.
He had finished his wrestling career. He had a very illustrious high school career. Unfortunately, he was injured and had been ill, and so he's out of the state tournament. Otherwise, he should have been in the top 4
Mhm.
of the tournament.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But we're sitting there watching the finals, and there's a little break going on, and I had picked up this magazine. I think it was USA Wrestling. And I'm flipping through and looking some dates, and I go down. I see Veterans Wrestling,
Mm.
March 5th and 6th,
Mhm.
Tucson, Arizona.
Mm.
We're mid-February here, and I look at that and I say, Joey, if you'll train with me, I want to compete in this.
Mm.
So he looks at me and goes, all right, Dad, but you're going to have to do everything I say.
Oh, the tables have turned.
Now, now let me ask, what 18-year-old would like to tell their dad, all right, Dad, but you have to do everything I say?
Every single one of them. Every single one of them.
So Joey became my training partner,
Okay.
my trainer, and
Oh,
my manager.
wow.
And we worked hard.
Uh-huh.
Now, mind you, I was in very good shape because I used to work out like a fiend.
Uh-huh.
But wrestling is a total different beast. Oh
Right.
my gosh, it is so
Yeah.
different. And those first 6 weeks, I'd come home from practice and I'd kind of stumble into the house, and Sherry would kind of joke, "Ah, you have enough yet, old man?" It's like, "Ah, no, I think I'm gonna go soak in the tub, honey." Or I'd sit on the couch afterwards, and
Yeah.
I'd have ice pack here, an ice pack here, an ice pack on my knee,
Uh-huh.
and be sitting there with this. And I added a early morning workout just to help boost my metabolism there, to help lower my weight there
Mhm.
towards my competitive weight.
Mhm.
And my feet had hit the floor early in the morning. It's like, oh, gee. And it's like, okay, Skip, come on, get moving, get moving.
Mhm.
At about 6 weeks, there was one morning I got up and I got outside to do that workout. And it was, whoa. I mean, I was feeling good. I said out loud, I said, son, you better bring your A game tonight because the old man is feeling good.
Yeah.
So 6 weeks, man, I was feeling really good. So
Uh-huh.
Joy and I traveled to Tucson and we won our national
Oh,
championship.
yay. Wow. What an awesome memory and
Mm.
story, and just that memory that you created with your son, and that's pretty cool. I love that.
Oh, yes, that was a very exciting time,
Yeah.
and it was wonderful to be able to train with him and laugh. And
Mhm.
afterwards, he's asking me, "Dad, was it worth it? All those ice packs and everything?" And I kind of laughed and I said, "Son,
Yeah.
it was definitely worth it."
That's awesome. Wow, some dads do car mechanics with their sons, and here you are training for a wrestling match at the age of 50. What was it again?
That was 56.
56. Wow. See, and that goes back to say, you could have just been complacent and happy with the legacy that you left behind with your wrestling career as a younger child, teenager, adult, but here you are going back to what you were happy and passionate with, and that's pretty cool. I love that. That's
Yes, indeed.
awesome.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Skip. I have had such an incredible, incredible conversation with you. And I know that I feel like I haven't even had a chance to speak much because I'm just so captivated by what you have to say. And I don't want to interrupt because it's just like, it's getting so, it's just all the things that you've had to say have been phenomenal. And you've given us so many words of wisdom. But if people would like to reach out to you and look into your book more, where can they find you at?
They can find my book on Amazon
Okay.
at they can find it on Google.
Yep.
They
Yep.
can find it on Barnes and Noble
Uh-huh. Very
and other
nice.
places.
Yeah.
And you can see my website there scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
It's www.wrestlingisnotforwimps.com. All one word,
Perfect.
wrestlingisnotforwimps.com. And I would love to hear
Wonderful.
from you. It would be my delight to interact with you.
Mhm.
This book was written for
Mhm.
men who are struggling with depression.
Mhm.
This book is written in lay language. It's written
Mhm.
in short, easy to read chapters,
Yes.
and it's chock full with tips, techniques, and tactics to help men
Yeah.
who are struggling in their depression and after the depression to help maintain their health and well-being.
Mm. Mm. I love it. I love it. And we have some birthdays coming up, so definitely will be purchasing that book and wrapping it and handing it over to a couple of men in my life. So thank you so much for that. Dr. Skip, again, it was such a pleasure having you on the show, and thank you so much for everything all the knowledge and wisdom that you've shared with us today.
Thank you, Jasmine. Dr. Jazz, it has been my delight to share some of my story. And thank you for allowing me to share about some of my passions, wrestling, my
Yes.
family,
Yes.
and medicine, and the army,
Yes.
and wrestling. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
the stories I could tell. We could have talked another few hours and
We
only
could
touched
have.
the surface. You know that. I know
Yes.
that. So, to my fellow vet, thank you,
Thank
Jasmine, for
you.
what you do, what you have done. And
Yes.
thank
Thank
you for
you.
your service and that of your husbands, because I
Thank
know you
you.
are both vets.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Skip, for all your years of service and everything you've done as well, giving back to your community as a physician. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. God bless you.